Now, it's been a very busy first week in office for the US President Donald Trump. He's expected to sign more and more executive orders. Now, these orders include a temporary ban on most refugees and a suspension of visas for citizens of Syria and 6 other Middle Eastern and African countries. Mr. Trump tweeted that, quote, a big day was planned on national security issues on Wednesday. He's expected to restrict the entry of refugees into the US, except for religious minorities escaping persecution until more aggressive vetting has been put in place. Let's dig a little deeper into that particular story. Abdulaziz Billo is live in Mogadishu. Daniel Rangers joins me as well from Washington, D.C. Abdulaziz, let's start with you. Somalia is one of the affected countries here. Has there been any formal response from the federal government to this latest move to ban immigration from countries including Somalia?
Well, Rama, there's been no formal statement from authorities here in Mogadishu. And one of the reasons that has been given as to the silent response from Mogadishu towards the new U.S. President's comments and his new executive orders on deportation. One of them has been cited as the reason as to why Somalia is in transition period right now. In almost 2 weeks, the country's members of parliament will be voting for a new head of state. So that is one of the reasons as to why the Somali government has been rather slow in addressing the US President Donald Trump's remarks. But then again, Rama, the situation has been more of like that over the past years. Most of, as you've said, the religious minorities escaping the conflict here in Africa and several Arab countries are the ones who have been banned by the new executive order by Donald Trump. Now, interestingly, is more of the Somalis were not being accepted into the U.S. Rather, the only people who used to get visas and access to the United States were government officials who went through the right legal procedures so that they could get the visas to go to the United States. So then again, experts here are saying that that's but one of the reasons as to why Donald Trump is trying to live to the expectation of the comments he made during his campaign. He's trying to prove to the American public that he's going to make America great again, has been putting out in his campaign pledges. And also the reality on the ground is that the Somali community in the U.S. has played a very pivotal role in the development of the United States itself. We recently saw the election of the first Somali American into the American Legislative Assembly. This is in Minnesota. So that is a clear boost that the Somalis there have playing a pivotal role. So that has been raised as a major concern as to Trump's ban on Somalis.
Indeed. Let's rope you in here, Daniel, and let's put these numbers into context. Of the about 85,000 or so refugees admitted to the U.S. last year, roughly 39,000 of those, roughly 46%, those were Muslim. So assuming similar traffic this year, how will this policy affect the number and the composition of refugees that the U.S. takes in?
Well, first of all, Rama, I want to frame this up at the moment. Reuters has been reporting these two separate ideas. One, which would be a ban on all refugees coming into this country temporarily whilst they make the vetting procedures more robust in the eyes of the Trump administration. The second would be a ban on any new visas emanating from countries including Libya and Somalia. But the crucial thing is, up until this moment, and I've been checking the latest details as we go on air, Trump has not yet signed, as I understand it, any executive order relating to those two matters, though there are major draft circulating executive orders going around at the moment looking at proposals. So this has not yet been enacted, but we will bring you the latest as it happens. But I would like to say that there's likely to be, on Donald Trump's side, less of an emphasis on this idea of targeting Muslim groups, because if they did that, then Trump would be more vulnerable to legal challenges based on the unconstitutionality of targeting Muslims, even despite all of his campaign rhetoric. Back to you.
Indeed. We'll cover that a little later on. Now, Abdulaziz, back to you. Does the federal government have any clarity moving forward on whether or not it will be able to get assistance from the US in its campaign against al-Shabaab? Authorities there simply assuming that under Trump there will be absolutely no help in dealing with that particular terror group.
Well, Rama, the United States remains Somalia's #1 ally in the fight against the Al-Shabaab. Under President Obama, a series of drone strikes has played a pivotal role here in weakening the Al-Shabaab's strength here. It has the drone strike has killed senior Al-Shabaab leadership, and this has in turn assisted the African Union troops and the Somali government better fight the Al-Shabaab, who have been waging rather a war against the government and the AMISOM and the United Nations for almost a decade. So for Somalia, the United States is a very, very important partner in the fight against the Al-Shabaab, and we know that that the United States trains elite commandos here in Somalia. These forces have played a pivotal role in the counter-terrorism operation. So also the African Union forces is better funded and highly funded by the United States. It's supporting a 22,000 strong African Union force drawn from several East African countries. So these countries are helping Somalia in its fight against the Al-Shabaab Rama. So authorities here are saying that under Obama, more strides were made here in Somalia. We saw the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry for the first time in almost 2 decades, and a sign of optimism for the new Somali government under President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud when he met with Obama in early 2013. So it was seen as a boost and a new relation between the United States and Somalia, whose severed ties in early 1992 following the Black Hawk Down incident. So at a time when Somalia was rebuilding from the ashes, they are seeing that the Trump administration should learn from Obama's steps and be able to assist Somalia in its fight against the Al-Shabaab Rama.
Indeed. One last question for you, Daniel. Let's get back to that question of radical Islam, which President Trump repeatedly focused on during his campaign and again now as president. How will this influence his approach to dealing with groups like Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram? Will it extend perhaps to actually taking a more aggressive line with longtime allies like Saudi Arabia?
Well, in terms of the military strategy and intelligence, I think in the last couple of years of the Obama administration, he appointed some very robust military and intelligence figures that will, I think, continue the same kinds of strategies. The appointment of General Mattis is one example. He's known as a robust, firm individual, but also one that is intellectually coherent. The big question, though, according to a recently retired former US State Department official dealing with these very issues that I've just spoken to, says the key issue here is the relationship that Donald Trump has with Russia vis-a-vis Syria. So the reason that this is so significant is because essentially Russia is aligning with Iranian interests in pushing out the groups that are opposed to President Assad. So if Trump supports that strategy, in effect, he's also supporting the Iranians, which is a problem for Israel. Trump has allied himself very strongly with Benjamin Netanyahu, who would himself advise the Trump administration to go much further towards the Gulf countries as a counterbalance. The reason I'm telling you this is it's a key strategic question for the Trump administration moving forward, and it will have a massive impact on the way that the Trump administration approaches Middle East and North African issues related to these groups moving forward.
Indeed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Certainly interesting times right across the world. Daniel Rangers in Washington, D.C. and of course Abdulaziz Pillow live in Mogadishu.